maximally great mother, who stirs the first waters beneath the hidden sky. O maximally great Father, whose sacred fire travels unbroken through the night upon the ancient yacht bark of 1,000,000 years, embraced and protected by mayhem. O infinite consciousness who shapes the darkness into 12 set-apart hours. Open gate 5 before us and lift every listener into the radiance of their becoming as a register watchers of the unseen world unfolding like scrolls of promise. As the Merkut pyramid text utters, your name lives. Let every soul here remember that they are not forgotten, not lost, not abandoned in the covers of experience, but known, carried, and called forward by the unseen. As the Coffin Text declares, I ascend on the ladder with the shining ones. Let every heartbeat and every listener feel ascent, awakening in the breath, rising in the ribs, stabilizing the mind, strengthening the will, and reminding the weary ones that they too are appointed to climb. The bark of 1,000,000 years moved, towed by 4 luminous ox, radiant presence whose light circles our spirits, and the shrines of the preserved ones glow softly in the dimness, reminding us that renewal is etched into our destiny, and resurrection is woven into our design from the first time. In this sacred hour, the surveying cord of the nature is stretched across our lives, not to limit us, but to align us, assigning destiny with precision, marking sacred territory of purpose around every listener, and calling each one into the rightful place of their unfolding. The rested ones lift their heads, and so do we. For even those who have felt pressed down, overlooked, overwhelmed, or unheard are stirred again by the breath of eternity. The lake of fire and the lake of life shimmer before us, promising that the fire baptism of purification will not consume us, but refine us. And the happy Nilotic waters of restoration, not to forsake us, but to replenish us. Even the drowned of the ninth hour to come, the ones submerged in the dark waters of their own trials, drift into memory of the nectar noon, only to rise once more, revealing that descent is not defeat, and silence is not the end. As the flame-eyed serpent of the fifth gate watches, the nectar of duration stands strong beside us, keeping our days extended and our purpose protected. And the stake of Ib rise in our honor, marking justice, stability, groundedness, and the assurance that we stand on earth that will hold us. The guardians with the names of terror withdraw before those who speak the truth. And so our truth becomes our shield, our compass, and our crown. The Bert M. Haru declares, my heart is mine, reminding every listener that their heart is the seat of intention, focus, and destiny belongs to them alone. The book of the sky affirms that the imperishable ones endureth. So endurance rise within us like a hidden sun, warm, patient, and unstoppable. Beneath us, the bark of the earth carries the hidden body of Ra, renewed itself in silence as the Duat revealed renewal hour by hour, and Haru by Haru, around us shimmering the nets prepared to restrain Apophis, the chaos that shall not swallow us tonight. For the nectar of the west, stand ready, separate, and to set fast from the wavering and lift the devoted into clarity. O now, O Mayat, let your 7 principles settle upon every listener like the feather of light. Let truth rise in them until their words and their thoughts walk in the same direction. Let justice guide them into fairness so that they do not betray themselves by accepting less than they deserve. Let harmony become the atmosphere of their homes, that their conversations and their inner world is at peace. Let balance return return them to center when life tries to pull them to the extreme. Let order structure their days with purpose, clarity, and discipline. Let reciprocity remind them that giving and receiving are both holy, and neither should cost them their peace. Let righteousness anchor their character so deeply that no storm can uproot their integrity. Let the 42 declarations of innocence and the virtues of Mayat awaken like stars in their bloodstream, each one guiding a different part of their daily life. Teach us to honor all life as sacred so that they move through their day with gentleness and reverence. Teach us to speak truth so that our words never betray our God. Teach us to offer good intent so that their presence becomes a blessing wherever they go. Teach us to consume only our fair share so that we practice responsibility, abundance without excess. Teach us to regard all altars with respect, knowing every person carries a temple within our bodies. Teach us to speak with sincerity so honesty becomes our language of power. Teach us to relate in peace, choosing calm responses over emotional explosions. Teach us to care for the vulnerable, reminding that compassion is a form of strength. Teach us to honor animals with reverence, recognizing that life speaks through all forms. Teach us to be trustworthy so our names become foundations for others to lean on. Teach us to care for the earth, understanding that land sustains the body as truth sustains the God. Teach us to keep our own counsel so that we do not seek validation that weakens our voice. Teach us to speak positively of others so that our words uplift rather to diminish. Teach us to stay in balance with our emotions, learning mastery rather than suppression. Teach us to spread joy, not because life is perfect, but because joy is a choice and cannot be stolen. Teach us to do the best that we can and to honor that effort without self-punishment and self-sabotaging. Teach us to communicate with compassion so that we build bridges and not barriers. Teach us to listen to opposing opinions, knowing wisdom grows from openness. Teach us to create harmony, becoming a stabilizing presence in chaotic spaces. Teach us to invoke laughter, for laughter is medicine for the heart. Teach us to open in love in many forms, refusing to limit our grace that could reach all of us. Teach us to forgive so that they do not carry chains into the future. Teach us to act respectfully towards others, knowing respect is a mirror that reflects inwardly. Teach us to follow inner guidance, trusting the whisper of our own intuition the Creator has given us at our mortal birth. Teach us to come first with awareness, letting consciousness speak before impulse. Teach us to do good, not for applause, but because goodness is alignment in Mayat. Teach us to give blessings so generously that it flows through the Mayat trilogy, Happy Now civilization, that story will be passed down from generation to generation. Hotep, teach us to keep the waters pure, guarding our minds from pollution and their bodies from corruption. Teach us to honor nature, remembering that gratitude multiplies the sacred. Teach us the humility that it does not weaken us, but it grounds us in confidence. Teach us to achieve with integrity, rejecting shortcuts that deform the Ka. Teach us to advance through our own abilities because we are our ancestors, walking confidently in the power of our bloodline. Teach us to embrace the all, understanding that we are all connected to everything, lacking nothing, knowing that the trying of our faith worketh Mayat, but let Mayat have her mature work, that we may be mature and entire, wanting for nothing, as the 12th grade promised us as it emerged in the late midnight hour from the waters and from the blaze bearers of the dawn. Carry the first light. We call Mayat into every step we take, every breath we draw, and every rising motion of our Ka. May every listener feel destiny pulling them forward right now like a tide of purpose, identifying and restoring itself inside of their bones. Courage is awakening like the sacred heartbeat. Clarity is arriving like the happy grand rising after a long night, and resurrection power is preparing herself in deep places in our beings. Oh, Mayat, steady us, rise us, guide us, open the narrow passage to the fifth gate so that every soul here walks as one measured in truth, uplifted in purpose, fortified in virtue, aligned in principle, and empowered to rise into the fullness of who they have come to be. Ankh, Ja, Seneb, Ash. Shem Hotep, beloved radiant ox, and welcome to the Mayatrology Night Show. Tonight we enter a charged and sacred conversation, an explosive session where truth, destiny, and cosmic order converge. We are not just here as content creators. We are here for revelation. We are here for alignment, and we are here to practice Mayat. Before history was carved in stone, before crowns were weighed and thrones were tested, a royal light rose in the sacred land of ancient Kemetic. Tutankhaten, a child king of only 9 years, was born into divine responsibility during a time of great disruption. Though he was young in years, he carried a burden of restoration, of balance, and of reopening temples, repairing spiritual fractures, and reestablishing harmony after violent religious upheavals. His reign was brief, yet his impact echoed far beyond length of his earthly days. This was a soul marked by purpose and not time. The ancient teachings tell us that a righteous soul does not vanish at death. It crosses, it recalibrates, and it returns where Mayat is most needed. Centuries later, that same current of destiny emerged again in a land raped by injustice. In 1941, the soul rose in the body of Emmett Lewis Till, a fearless 14-year-old boy born of a people whose ancestors shaped civilization itself. His life was taken in an act of brutal hatred, but his death awakened a nation. His image shattered illusions. His sacrifice ignited moral reckoning. Just as Tutankhaten restored balance in Kemet, Emmett Till forced truth to confront America. Each lifetime disrupting false order and calling humanity back to justice. But the work was not finished. In 1977, the Ka, the energetic double, rose again, this time in the body of a child by the name of Duat, who would come to be known as Tutemra. Born with an uncommon sensitivity, a prophetic voice, and a mission that refused silence, he emerged as the living integration of these previous currents of destiny. He is an author of the award-winning work. The book is entitled Tutemra, The Prophecy of Reincarnation, Star Codes of Immortality, the Hip-Hop Bible. He stands as the continuation of an unfinished assignment, royal wisdom and righteous innocence, and awakened purpose, unified into one living message. This is not just simply a story. This is a transmission. This is a journey through dynasties, through trauma, and through resurrection. A testimony of a soul that could not be erased, could not be buried, and could not be broken. Tonight, on the Mayatrology Night Show, we open this gate together as we listen, we question, and we align. And we allow truth to rise, unfiltered, uncompromised, and on time. All consciousness lean in. The night is alive. The scales are balanced. And the story continues. Oh, shit.
What would like for you to share? What inspired you to put this book together in written form to share it with the world?
Mfundisi would be the first Kemetic priest, or he would be, as we go through this journey, we find people that sort of usher us in. And so I was in Harlem, and Mfundisi was the priest who I would come in to his table and ask him questions and pick his brain. And so that happened very many years ago. I think I met Mfundisi in 2011 or 10, and I started going to some of his classes and to his martial arts Sunday class and to his Metaneta classes, and so that's how I met Mfundisi, Jehudimus. So in 2018, when my past life came, on July 3rd, the next day, I began to tell everyone, because at that year in 2018, at the festival, I was working under Mfundisi's tent. I was doing massage under his tent at the festival, at the African Arts Festival. And so the next day when I came back and I began to share this revelation that came to me, I remember when I told Mfundisi, one of the things he kept telling me was, write it down. And so I would say to him, I'm gonna write it down. But I was so, you might say, obsessed with this awakening, this revelation, that I didn't write anything down. What I kept doing was, because at the time, see, when something like that happens, I try to explain to people, people make reincarnation, it's usually something where they are a very notable person for good reasons. They're a king, they're a famous musician, they're someone very famous, right? Emmett Till was infamous. He was famous by different means, right? So to realize that you are this boy, it was a mix of feelings. It was like, wow, I'm not dead, I'm alive, and the world needs to know this. But the first day, I was only working with a few things. I had this instantaneous knowing from a series of events that I can get into, but I came out the first day knowing that it took me 9 months to realize that I look like him. So that a lot of times when people are dealing with reincarnation, it's they see a likeness to something. Oh, I look like this person, right? And so therefore I must be that person. So that's not my story. So, so the first day I knew that he was murdered the year my mother was born. I knew that, but it's not that. I would have to tell you the whole series of events, but I'm answering the question of what inspired me to write the book. So I'll get into how I realized I was Emmett Till, but I'll just say that for 2 years, I kept telling the story of my life as Emmett Till. For 2 years, I just kept telling this story, because as time kept going by, they say where there's smoke, there's fire, or, at some point, if something isn't true, the trail will run dry, right? Can you understand that part?
Yes.
The trail will run dry at some point. The synchronicities, coincidences will end there. 2 years of me telling this story. In 2020, when my life as Tutank came, Mfundisi would tell me to write it down, and I would say, I'm gonna write it down. Yes. I didn't write anything down. I was too busy. Oh, that's what I was saying. That at some point, if it wasn't true, the trail would run dry. But it never ran dry. I kept finding new things that just kept amazing me, actually. That's why it's called Star Codes of Immortality. It kept amazing me. The first day I didn't know. So the first day, like I said, I knew that there was an instantaneous knowing, boom. Then I started researching him. I knew that he was murdered the year my mother was born. I said, oh, that's interesting. Then I saw he was born on July 25th. I said, oh, that means, so when it first came, it was an instantaneous knowing, but I don't believe it. I don't believe it. It's like, how am I going to be him? No, hell no. but there's an instantaneous knowing, right? But I'm like, no.
Yes.
So I start to research him. I said, okay, so he's born on the 25th. That didn't mean I'm October 25th. He's July 25th. That means nothing. And so that's something because, as you begin to go on this journey, you begin to understand patterns and codes, right?
Yes.
So I said, all right, but I'm like, oh, that 25 means nothing. It means nothing. And then I say, oh wait, he's born the year he's murdered the year my mother was born. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then I said, well, what year was he born? 1941. I said, oh wow, he's born in the year of the snake. That's what made me watch a documentary on him. So I watched the documentary and I realized, wow, he was shot in the head in the same place that I have this dot right here. I said, oh wow, this black dot, which birthmarks have to do with how you were murdered, the genetic memory from your previous life, from how you may have died. I said, wow, there's a dot here. Mammy in the documentary, she said there was daylight between, you could see from one side of his head to the other. So this black dot here, right where she said, and right where you see the bullet, oh, okay, this ear was cut off. There's a black dot here, and chain wrapped around the neck. There's a black dot here. So I was like, that's what I came out with the first day, in an instantaneous knowing. As time went by, I began to find out all the other things. So I didn't write anything down. I just kept telling people about these mysterious things that would happen. As soon as my life as Tutankhaten came and Tutemra came echoing in my ear, immediately, I began to compile all of the coincidences. See, there's a certain with the person that I am before the past lives, I already had an analytical mind. I had a different type of analytical mind. So before the past lives came, I had many other things that had happened to me. So I'd already set there was already fertile ground for me to then take this experience and to manifest it, So, and not to mention the time in which it happened. If this had happened to somebody, if this had happened to me at a different time when there was no internet, I could not have done this. I could not have done this without internet, without computers. I could have known, I could have felt it, but I could not have done this.
Gotcha.
Because it took text messages. It took old hard drives. It took this cuff right here. I bought off of the wrist of Mfundisi on May 25th of 2014. Why do I know the day? I know the day because the day that I bought it off of his wrist, I took a video of it.
Yes.
He was vending on 125th Street. And I saw his cuff. He had his table full of stuff. He was wearing this. And when I saw it, I said, how much is that? This has not happened to me before or since. I saw this piece, and I'm not a person that wears jewelry. My mother, it's funny because when I was a kid, I never wore a gold chain. I've never had rings. When I was younger, growing up in Queens, for Rockaway, Queens, it was violent where I'm from. So my mother feared me having gold because if you have gold and chain, you'll get robbed. So I was never allowed to have gold. I never had gold chains or rings. So I don't wear jewelry. I'm not a jewelry wearer. But when I saw this cuff, I had to have it.
Yes.
And 2014 was the year that I began to be obsessed with or be drawn to Kepper. And it was on a superficial level because me being a personal trainer, I didn't understand the deeper meanings of it, but it meant transformation. And so as a personal trainer, you're transforming yourself physically and you're transforming your clients physically. So it wasn't on a deeper metaphysical. I didn't have the deeper metaphysical understandings of Kepper or Kepper rule, the continuous coming, right? I didn't know all that, but I was drawn to Kepper that year of 2014. And then when I saw it on him, I had to have it. And he sold it to me for a fraction of what it should have been, what I should have paid. Now, the interesting thing about that, me buying this on May 25th, that was a prophecy in itself, because this cuff, I didn't know how to read anything in the Meduneda when I bought this off his wrist. I didn't know anything about the Meduneda. I couldn't read anything back then. What's that, 11 years ago? I couldn't read a word of the Meduneda, right? However, on this Ankh reads Neb Keperu Ra. in small hieroglyphics right there. But
Beautiful.
I never knew what that said. But right there, that's the throne name. And then also, if you look at this, it says Rur Ankh Aten. Now,
Let's
why
see.
is that interesting? This is a silver cuff, right? Why is that
Yes.
interesting? You asked me what inspired me to write this book. This is still on target because I said that my mind, my analytical mind, what happened to me years ago, would you say that Kemet is the land of dreams?
Ooh, has
Is
to
it?
be.
It
It
is. So
has
now
to
check
be.
this out. In 2002, my sister had a dream on May 25th that I died in a car accident. 7 days later, on June 1st, I crashed and lived.
Let's see.
Now, when that happened, I was in the army. I was in Germany. She was in the States. When that happened, I had no idea what the date of that call or accident was. So I didn't know that back then. That was 2002. As time went by, 6 years later in 2008, I'm driving motorcycles. I'm out of the army. I totaled my motorcycle in South Carolina on May 25th. I come back to New York. I buy another motorcycle. All of these events are in my book. And on June 2nd, I crashed that motorcycle. But when I bought that new motorcycle, it had a cross between the handlebars and it had Jesus Christ on it. And I said to this guy, I said, I'm going to keep this here so I always have God with me. I bought it from a guy in Long Island. And he said, listen, I just had a baby. My wife doesn't want me to drive this anymore. They call it the Widowmaker. And we need the money. So just be careful. And I said, all right. I said, I'm going to keep this with me so I always have God with me. A couple days later, on June 2nd, I'm driving on the FDR in New York early in the morning to train my clients. I'm driving on the highway. A truck comes into my lane, so I have to bounce into this lane. In this lane is an on-ramp to the highway, and there's a car merging into the highway going slow. So I crash into it. I fly off the motorcycle, crash into their back window. I bounce off the car like Spider-Man, like Peter Parker, like Peter Patar,
Oh,
and I land
man.
on my feet. And in between my feet on the highway is the cross, but Jesus isn't on it anymore.
Oof.
So that happened to me in 2008. So now I still don't know the dates that those accidents happened, but I always told those stories and people always found them amazing. Like, whoa, God has you here for a reason. So now as I'm going through my journey, in 2009, my grandfather dies. In 2010, I start studying. In 2011, in December, I get a letter in the mail for child support from a girl that I had engagement with back in 2002, right before I went to Iraq. And there was this girl that I engaged with years ago, and at one point I thought it was mine, and we realized it wasn't. I never heard from her again. Never heard, but I got this letter in the mail that was for child support. And so this was the defining moment in my life, if you ask me.
Mm,
Because mind you, I never knew those dates in the past. I never knew those dates of those accidents that my life was spared, that my sister
right.
dreamt this car accident before it happened, right?
Yes.
But what happened is because of the way that I responded, instead of saying negative, vulgar, this blah, 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 I looked through my old paperwork trying to find this girl's number or a number from somebody in the army. It's 2011. I had gotten out the army in 2005. So I'm looking through paperwork for somebody in the army that I know that I can call to get in touch with her, right?
Right.
And so while looking through that paperwork, I find my accident reports and I start looking at them. And for the first time, I realized, wow, I Googled, I said, what I realized was that I crashed. This is what I realized, that I crashed on my father's birthday, because when I crashed in 2002, I didn't know that that was my father's birthday because I didn't grow up with him like that. So at this time, me and him are developing a relationship. So I realized, wow, I crashed on my father's birthday in 2002. Then I saw the other accident that I crashed on May 25th in 2008. And I said, wait a minute, my sister dreamt the car accident in 2002, like a week prior, because she dreamt it on a Saturday and I crashed on a Saturday. So then I did the math, on the internet to see what day it was that she would have called me on that Saturday. And I said, wow, it was May 25th. So now here's where it's going to get interesting. See, you would call Mfundisi my spiritual father because he's the one that ushered me into the teachings of Kemet. I bought this off of
Yes.
his wrist. Emmett
Yes.
Till's body was identified by a silver ring. On that silver ring, it said May 25th. His
Look at
father had
that.
given it to him. His father
Wow.
had left it for him.
Wow.
But remember, his father was born in 1922 on February 7th, the same day, the same year that the same year that King Tut was discovered. Emmett Till's father was born in 1922, the same year King Tut's tomb was discovered.
Oh,
He left a
damn.
ring that said May 25th on it for Emmett. That was
Mm.
what they found. His body was naked in the river. The only way they identified this body was the ring. His face was mutilated. A silver ring that had rays of it looked like the rays of Aten on it. It had May
Yeah, man.
25th and it had the rays of light shining on the May 25th.
Mm.
So when my life as Tutankhaten came, immediately I began to gather all these other coincidences, like the ones that I just explained to you, all of these things that have been happening to me all throughout my life. And that's what made me compile this book.
And it looks like we have a guest in the studio here. Looks like we have Kwame in the house. How are you?
Hey, Rahube, peace, family, Musar. Worry about me. Yeah, Kwame is my Akan name, but Hu Kanum is also another name I go by. I am a Nuwapian or a Sabian, to the best of my ability. So I do practice and am affiliated with the ancient Kemetic or the ancient Egyptian order, with the teachings and the information, applied information. I am, actively, still learning as well. So as we all are. So yeah, I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. On my journey, I had a lot of different teachers, different scholars, different, people who came up. My first teacher was Bobby Hemmett, Phil Valentine from there, Dick Gregory, Phil Valentine, a lot of the great scholars, great brothers that came before us, dropped some information and knowledge. So that really profoundly, shaped my vision. And now I am, under, or I won't say under, but, beside the tutelage of the Dr. Malachi Z. York, who came through and brought his information and his knowledge, despite whatever discrepancies people may have about any individual, because everyone's got them. There's definitely some great information that was being passed down from that being, that supreme being right there. So that's where I'm at in information right now, learning on my journey as I go through incarnation of Kanun. But I definitely have tapped into many. As you know, when you're going through this, you channel different beings at different times in your life, and names may change. So yeah, at this moment in time, I'm the sculptor, I'm the molder, I'm the builder. I am doing my best each and every day. And
Bobby Hemmett was my favorite lecturer I listened to, when I first started to, I think Brother Osiris said he's been on his journey for 20 years, and I've been on this journey for 15. I might say that, consciously, because in 2010 was when I really began to start to study, and to read, to pick up and read things. And so, yeah, and when I started, I began to listen to those, and a lot of those aren't online anymore. The 8-hour lectures from Dr. Valentine, remember those?
you
Yo,
remember? Yep,
Oh
yep.
yeah,
yo, 10
classics.
hours, eight. I listened to those. I would be listening to those, but Bobby became my favorite. And I read all of those, that's in my book. Bobby was my favorite. And the interesting thing about Bobby is that Bobby was in this life, in this body, Bobby was my favorite lecturer, and his name is Bobby Hemmett, but if you take the M off of it, it's Emmett, and they used to call Emmett Bo, so it's kind of weird that Bobby would end up being my favorite lecturer. And he is born on November 27th, I believe, or the 28th, and the tomb of Tutankhaten was opened on November 26th. So, all throughout the book, there's weird synchronicities like that with my stories. The year that I was born, in 1977, there was a Hatha yoga instructor from Chicago. I forget his born name, but he changed his name to Asar Happy when he went to the King Tut exhibit in 1977, the year that I was born. He went to the King Tut exhibit in Chicago, and he saw He, infinity millions of years, the Necha He sitting on the throne of King Tut's chair, and he had an epiphany that yoga started in Kemet. And he started teaching Egyptian yoga, and he taught my yoga instructor Egyptian yoga. But here's the most important thing. You asked me before, what's the message that I want people to know? I could have lived this life and never have known this. And somebody listening has something that they can learn, that they can get, but they might die and never get it if they don't make the proper changes in their life. You understand? This wasn't promised to me. I had to earn the right to know this. But Martin Luther King, they started the bus boycott, and that sparked Martin Luther King to civil rights. When I realized my connection to Martin Luther King, I began to revere him and honor him more.
And now, beloved listeners, as the echoes of Gate 5, Hour 5 softens into the luminous chambers of your spirit, may you walk away from this sacred encounter not as one who merely heard a teaching or an interview or a session, but as one who has been changed by it. For tonight, you did not simply stand before Mayat. Mayat stood within you, balanced you, breathed you, and reminded you of the architecture of your soul. Tonight, the ancient lights of the preserved ones passed over your body like the warm dawn, the bark of 1,000,000 years as Ra paused long enough for your heart to be recalibrated, and the surveying cord of destiny stretched across your life with fresh precision. You entered into this gate carrying questions, and you leave carrying clarity. You entered with strength, but you leave with strength. You entered with uncertainty, but you leave with your ring, your name whispering louder than your fears. Let the radiance of what you felt continue to pulse in your bloodstream long enough after these words fade. Let the courage awaken in your ribs and remain standing like the guardian at your internal core. Let the clarity that touched your mind tonight rise again tomorrow morning during the grand rising, when the world tries to make you forget who you are. Let the resurrection stir beneath your breath and let it meet you in your quiet moments, in your secret moments, and remind you that nothing in your life is too lost, or too late, or too broken, or too damaged for the Neteru to transform. The Book of Gates promise that the one who remembers passes. And so tonight, you remember, and your heart remembered, and your destiny remembered, and your ancestors remember you. Because guess what? You are the ancestors. And so you go forward now, knowing that you are carried, you are guided, you are protected, and you are becoming. Every virtue you invoke is now active. Every possibility, you are now honored and aligned. Every teaching, everything that you open inside of your car is now rooted itself inside of your becoming. Mayat walks with you. Ra's fire rises behind you, and your ancestors stand beside you like the pillars of light, because they are you. And every step that you take from this moment forward is a step taken in strength, clarity, dignity, and divine order. So tonight, may your night be peaceful. May your grand rising be powerful. May your path be illuminated. And may the promise of Gate 5, Hour 5, guide you into Gate 6, Hour 6. And as you enter into every decision, and every conversation, and every transformation, here awaits is your future. Ankh, Jah, Seneb. Life, prosperity, and in health. Ash.